Hi, I'm Dr. Ellis Orozco, and thanks for listening to this video podcast. I hope you have a great weekend. Hi, and thanks for listening in. This weekend I wanted to think a little bit about loving the person who is hard to love, the person who's so different from you, thinks so differently than you do, lives differently than you do, and maybe even the person who doesn't really love or care for you. How do you love that person? Jesus had this experience one day with the Pharisees where they were criticizing him because his disciples were not washing their hands in the right way before they ate. In other words, they weren't following the laws, the rules. And Jesus basically tells them that it's not what you put in your mouth that makes you unclean. It's what comes out of your mouth that makes you unclean. He makes that important point. And then he goes on this kind of like a vacation. He leaves the area, and it's one of the few times that he actually travels into Gentile country. He goes to this city called Tyre, which was on the Mediterranean coast, and it was completely a Greek kind of Gentile area. And he's having dinner there with some friends, and the thing that he had just told the Pharisees before he left is put to the test, because there's this woman there who is completely different from them. It describes her as a Syro-Phoenician woman, and what that does is it describes not only her ethnicity, but it describes the language that she speaks, and it describes her faith, her belief system, which was very much polytheistic. Not only is she a woman, which in that culture makes her very different, but she speaks a different language, Greek. She worships a different way and a different faith, polytheistic as opposed to monotheistic. And she's from a different ethnic background. And she's at the table with them, and she begs Jesus to heal her daughter who is sick. And at first he doesn't listen to her. He doesn't pay attention to her. And his disciples tell her to go away. She's just so different. She's annoying them. And so they want Jesus to tell her to go away. But she's persistent. And Jesus says it's not right to give the bread that belongs to the children to the dogs. Now, the children in this sense are the Israelites, and the dogs are the Gentiles. He's calling her a dog. And she comes back with a great line. She says, yes, but even the dogs get to eat the crumbs off of the children's table. And Jesus at that point just smiles, and he tells her, you have great faith. Go, your child has been healed. And it's this scene where Jesus is showing, he's proving out what he had just said, that it's not what goes in your mouth that makes you unclean. It's what comes out of your mouth that makes you unclean. He's proving to his own disciples, see, she could not be more different from us, but we're to love her and respect her the same. So there's four things Jesus does in this scene that I want you to see are four things that we need to try to do when loving those who are very different from us. And the first is that he opens himself up to her. The disciples want to send her away, but Jesus opens himself up to her. The second thing he does is he listens to her. They actually carry on a conversation, which is something that most rabbis would never do. The third thing he does is he acknowledges when she's right. She comes back to him and says, basically, even we lowly Gentiles deserve something. And Jesus smiles and says, in a sense, you're right. And he heals her daughter. And that's the last thing he does, is that he helps her. You know, when you open yourself up to those who are different from you, you listen to them, to their thoughts, their ideas, their perspective. You acknowledge where they're right. There are places where we may be wrong in the way we believe, and they may be right. And then you move to help them, because you can't truly serve someone and hate them at the same time. So these are the ways that we can begin to love those who are very different from us. I hope that you reflect on the ways you're doing that in your own life this weekend. God bless you, and have a great weekend.